Hello, my name is Jane. I actually volunteer at Riverside and I have become passionate about Sweet Poppy. And I'd like to show you some basic techniques of how to use the Sweet Poppy products and using paste and powders and glitters to create a topper for a general card. Right, before you start your Sweet Poppy technique, it actually is quite important to make sure that you've got everything ready, because once you've actually started, particularly with the paste and the powders, you need to make sure that you are prepared and you don't actually leave the paste to then dry out unnecessarily. So as you can see from the table, we've got a various sample of different stencils. There are many more that you can actually buy. I've got a magnetic shim onto which I've placed my cardstock and the stencil that I'm going to use today. I've got a spatula, which actually there are other alternatives that you can use, but actually the main spatula that you can actually get is probably the best one. Some sort of little stirring stool or applicator for the paste. I'm using the pearlescent white paste today, which I find goes really well with the powders and the glitters. I've chosen 3 powders, which is quite a nice different variety of colours that you can use, but you can use as few as 1, 2 or as many as you want. Masking tape, preferably low tack, not necessarily case, but it is again better. Lots of scrap paper, particularly for putting your rubbish on, and immediately nearby, but that won't stay there in a minute, is a bowl of washing up water with just some warm water in it, because you'll want to put your stencil in there as soon as you've used it so that the paste does not dry out. Right, the first thing I'm going to do today is I've taken black stock card, which obviously I've placed my metal shim on, and when you first start this technique, it's actually quite a good idea is to cut it to size. This actually prevents the paste from going on excess, and it also helps when you're putting your tape down. So all I'm going to do now is just measure roughly to the side, and I'm going to take it off and to cut it with a guillotine. Having cut your cardstock to size, before you actually start in applying the stencil and taping it down, you need to apply an anti-static cloth over your cardstock. This actually prevents the powder, once you apply it, from sticking to the card, and therefore then it will only stick to the paste. Having cut my cardstock to size, I'm now going to use masking tape, and I'm going to tape the metal shim to the table, making sure that I capture in the edges of my metal shim, but also just covering up my magnetic shim so I don't get paste on it. And I'm going to work my way around. The top and the bottom probably is more important than the sides, but as you can see, I am making sure that I capture the actual metal shim in. And at the bottom, just making sure that I can capture from there and seal it as a square. The next stage is to take the paste that you're using, and with a spatula you are going to place the paste at the top of your stencil, a bit like a sausage, all the way along, making sure that you actually cover the metal area. It's important to get enough to make sure that it goes into the stencil, but you don't want too much to then go all over everywhere else. You're now going to take your spatula and you're going to start at the top of your stencil, hold the spatula with 2 hands, and with the scraper, about 45-degree angles, you're going to drag the paste down the stencil to make sure that the paste goes into the stencil area, as you can see. Now you can do this a couple of times if it doesn't quite. I'm a bit lucky today. I've managed to get all the paste in, and I'm going to collect any excess paste off my spatula and off around the card. Having removed all the excess paste from around the stencil, your spatula and your little tool that you've used are going to go straight into the washing up bowl to be washed up in a minute. The next stage is to gradually take off your masking tape, reversing the position of there. So I'm starting with the bottom part first. This is where I often get a piece of scrap paper to one side, and I place all my sticky tape onto a piece of scrap paper. It saves myself and anything else again getting messy with the tape, and I don't have to touch it very much. So onto a piece of scrap paper, so I can then collect that up. With your last piece of tape, you need to undo both sides so it's actually free from the table. You need to take the stencil to the edge of the table I'll just stop for a moment so we can actually move the camera to get this in shot. Having moved it to the edge of the table, you're going to hold your cardstock and your magnetic shim, and then you're going to lift the stencil up like a hinge and pull it off, and there you've left your paste on your card. And that's straight into the washing up bowl. So I've removed my cardstock with my paste, and I've now placed it onto a clean piece of paper. And as you can see on the right hand side, I've got 3 colours that I'm using today. And I've actually just got an ordinary paintbrush, and I'm going to obviously dip the paintbrush into my powders, take it to where I want it, and then I'm just going to apply with a tap technique into the area where I want, not worrying too much about whether it overlaps, because we are going to knock it off. Only where the paste is will the powder stick to. Now I'm going to carry on with this, and then I'm going to come back to it and to show you a little bit more. From where, if you finish a particular colour, I can then choose a second colour and then apply it where I want it to be. And this obviously continue all the way through from there. And just brush it off and then go to my third colour. Now while I do this, I'm going to stop the tape and continue it, and I'll show you the finished effect. Now, having completed in applying my 3 different colours, remember, in fact, that each time that you add the colour, probably the first colour that you add is probably going to be the strongest, because it's the one that's going to stick to the paste first. So be careful with your colours and make sure that you apply the colours where you want them, knowing that the first one probably is going to be the strongest colour. Having finished all the 3 colours, all you do is to take your card and on its side and just bang the powder mostly off the card, and then you're going to leave it to dry. And this will need to dry for probably at least an hour, if not a couple if you can. Now don't waste your powder. As you can see, I've got a pot here, and I always make sure that I collect my powder, because having collected it, you can then always use it for a future card. Now I know I've totally changed card and style and the colours, but this is actually a topper that I made earlier to make sure that you could then see the next technique. So this was done this morning. And I'm going to take, again, just a clean piece of paper, and I'm going to take a very soft makeup brush. And with the soft makeup brush, working from one end to the other or one side to the other, I'm going to just gently brush my powder off my card. Just tapping it in between. And actually, you're now just going to get rid of the excess powder. And as you do, you should notice that the powders then become actually quite shiny. And again, if you do get quite a lot off your card, you can actually collect it into your spare pot and use it as a mixed powder. As you can see, just beginning to now become quite a silky particular topper. So the finished product therefore then would be is to take your topper and then to mount it onto any card that you wish. On this particular one, I've double mounted it to try and create the pink edge, and then with a black topper because I didn't have a black card. But anything that you wish to do, any colour scheme that you wish to do, obviously can be achieved. Well then, I hope you enjoyed the demonstration that I've shown you today. Don't forget that Sweet Poppy, as you can see from behind me, has a huge range of stencils that you can actually use. And my demonstration today only used 3 powders. Again, probably at least 20 plus different other types of micro powders. There are also glitters that you can add to your project. This was using the white paste, but there is some clear paste and there's other different colour pastes. There's also quite a lot of other techniques. So please visit us on our website, come and browse in our shop, and perhaps look forward to perhaps in the future we may be able to do a few more demonstrations on the Sweet Poppy techniques.